Hi everyone, this is Shazib Rafiq. In today's video, we are going to discuss another topic from AS Business Studies, that is business structure. We are going to discuss the key concepts, we are going to discuss definition along with the examples and some keywords to remember. Let's start with the first one, that is public sector organizations. Now, public sector organizations are entities that are owned, operated by the government and providing services to the public. Now, they are basically funded through taxes and serve the community's welfare. Now, some of the basic examples here in Pakistan can be Pakistan's Railway, Pakistan Post Office, etc. Now, the keywords to remember here is government owned and funded by the taxes. Now, the second definition that we are going to discuss is private sector. Now, private sector are the businesses that are not owned or controlled by the government. Now, these entities operate for profit and provide and are privately owned. Now, some of the basic examples we could have is it's Apple Inc. and we have Ford Motors Company. Now, the keywords to remember here is privately owned and profit driven. The third definition is sole traders. Now, sole traders again they're the part of a private sector businesses that comes under private sector businesses. Sole trader is an individual who owns and operates a business on their own. They have full control over the business but bear unlimited personal liability. Now, unlimited personal liability means the business, if business goes bankrupt, so they have to pay their liabilities first. So if they couldn't manage to pay all their liabilities, so the rest of the liability have to be paid from their personal possession. It means that the liability is not limited to business until and unless it is paid off. Some of the example of sole trader can be a local bakery owned by an individual. Now, the keywords to remember here is individual ownership, unlimited liability. Next would be private limited companies. Now, private limited companies are business entity with limited liability. Now, what is limited liability? Obviously, the liability is limited only to business for its shareholders. Now, shares are not publicly traded. In private limited company, the shares are not publicly traded, and ownership is often restricted to the people they already have the shares. Now, since private limited companies are not so much popular in the market, so I just take an example of XYZ Private Limited here. The keywords to remember are limited liabilities and private ownership. Limited liability and private ownership. And one of the keyword is they are not publicly traded. They are not publicly traded. This is also a keyword to remember. Next would be the public limited companies. Now, public limited companies is a business whose shares are traded on the stock exchange. Whose shares are traded on the stock exchange. Now, ownership is spread among the public because the number of people who purchase the shares becomes the ownership, because the becomes the shareholder of the company, and the company also have limited liability as well. Now, one of the example can be Google Inc. And the keywords to remember here is publicly traded, limited liability. Publicly traded, limited liability. Next would be what is limited liability. Now, limited liability basically protect an individual's personal assets from the business debts. Limited liabilities protect an individual's personal assets from the business debts. It means that in case of business bankruptcy, the assets of the company the liabilities will be paid from the assets of the company only. And if the assets are not enough to pay the liabilities, the shareholders are not responsible for that. So therefore, the shareholders do not have to pay from their personal possession. So their personal possession would be protected if the company have limited liability. It means the liability is only limited to business. So the examples can be the shareholders in a limited company, and we have shareholders in a limited company have limited liability as well. Now, what are the keywords to remember here? One of the keyword can be protection from their personal assets, and the other keyword can be yes the owners are only liable for the amount invested in the business. They do not have to pay from their personal possessions. So it means that protection of the personal assets is the keyword here. Next would be the joint venture, a very, very important topic. Joint venture means when a business arrangement where two or more parties collaborate for a specific project. When two or more parties collaborate for a specific project. Now, sharing risk and rewards as well. Now, one of the example can be a partnership between two companies to develop a new product. For example, there is a company here in Pakistan. Its name is Parco, Pak Arab Refinery. Now, it's a joint venture in between Pakistani government as well as the Abu Dhabi government. So it means that joint ventures can take place not only in private sector but also in public sectors. So some of the keywords to remember here is collaboration and shared risk. Collaboration and shared risk.